Very good afternoon, everyone. We're just gonna get started at 5:35. In the meantime, enjoy some classical music while you chill. And for some of you who have a little bit of time and haven't had a chance to complete the pre-session survey, you can also click on this QR code, scan it, and then fill that in while listening to classical music. We'll be started shortly at 5:35. Thank you. Hey, it's me. Again, for those who have just joining us, we're just giving everyone a minute or two more. We'll start at 5:35 p.m. sharp. But while you're waiting, enjoy a little bit of chill time listening to classical music. So my classical music ended before 5:35. We're getting close. That was one of my favorite songs. I do listen to it while trying to maintain my own well-being and chilling out. I find it's easier to listen to music with no words, so I can just, really rest my brain a little bit and maybe tap on the creative side. All right, it is 5:35 sharp, so as promised, we shall get started. So hello, everyone. My name is Karina Kwok, and I'm the head of professional practices at the Institute for HR Professionals. A very good afternoon to everyone. We have about 214 of you dialed in currently. And welcome to join us on the second installment of the three-part webinar series jointly hosted with the Tripartite Alliance for Action on Work-Life Harmony. As you know, an impact of COVID-19 casts a shadow of uncertainty across the globe. And, as we hear from PM Lee's address, we will continue on in this kind of work from home default mode, at least till mid-June. We do need to look out for new ways to help ourselves, our organizations, our staff, and so on, our teams, cope with the stress, potential stress of continued working from home. I think especially with kids now on summer break, on school break, it is even more challenging for working parents like myself, who needs to juggle parental as well as work demands concurrently. I think I'm fighting with my son for bandwidth at the moment. So, it's not uncommon then that we will experience symptoms of burnout, feeling a bit meh about, work, lack of motivation. So I'm very keen to tune in, to listen in to this webinar, where we will hear from our MOM teams who will share a little bit more on best practices on work-life harmony, some ideas that we can consider, as well as also a spotlight focus on mental well-being. I think sometimes it's considered a taboo topic, but a very necessary one for us to listen in on and to find out, how can we help, our teams recognize this, and it's okay to be not okay, right? And then lastly, I think, what I'm really keen to tune into is a wonderful panel dialogue that we have lined up, where we have panelists from Maybank, from Prudential, and also Nikko Asset Management. And we have a wonderful moderator, Jennifer, who will help us with the panel dialogue. And also we have some guest stars who will help us with opening address as well as closing address, the tripartite co-leads for work-life harmony. So I'll introduce them shortly. But in the meantime, bear with me. I'll just kind of run through some webinar housekeeping rules on the next slide, please. So typical to our webinars, we will highlight that, yes, the webinar recording will be shared. We will be recording the presentations by the MOM team, as well as the panel dialogue. So just give us a week to turn that around, because we need to make sure the recording is okay and blessed by the corporate, PR teams and so on. So please do give us about a week to turn that around. We'll send that out across in our follow-up email to everyone. Do refrain from taking any screenshots or recording of this session, as some of the information is confidential. And for Q&A, for some of you who may be unfamiliar with the Zoom, you will see at the bottom there are options for you to have a chat, so you can give a shout out to folks, or type in some key takeaways. But do take note, the moderator and the panelists will only be reviewing the QA panel, the question and answer panel. So if you do have a question for a specific panelist, kindly note their name so that the moderator can direct it to them. And also then type in your questions. We may not get to all the questions and answers at one go, so do bear with us. We'll collate all of them and then try to send that out as follow-up to everyone as well post the session. All right. I think just before I introduce the opening remarks and MOS Gan, if you can go to the next slide, I just want to give some of you a context onto the Alliance for Action for Work-Life Harmony. So the tripartite partners, MOM, NTUC, and SNEF, supported by IHRP and TAFEP, launched the AFA on Work-Life Harmony on 9th of February 2021. And really the purpose of this is so that we can take joint action with the committee. So partnering with our work-life harmony ambassadors, HR professionals, and so on, to really tackle work-life harmony challenges, come up with ideas, and so on. So later on, you'll be hearing from our tripartite co-leads, Ms. Gan Xiaohuang, Minister of State of Manpower, Director Yeo Wan Ling, Director of USME and Women Family Unit representing NTUC, and then Dr. Biki Bangu, who is a SNEF Council member. And the key goals, as you can see there on the 3 bullets, of the AFA for Work-Life Harmony is to improve awareness and the importance of work-life harmony and best work-life practices, which we'll hear about later, supporting workplaces and wider community to sustain and enhance work-life practices, and also supporting companies and employees, as they overcome the challenges in implementing flexible work arrangements and work-life practices in their organizations. So stay tuned for more. Next, we do have a presentation coming up, which is by Ms. Chan Wing-Yen, where she will share a little bit more about work-life harmony good practices. So Ms. Chan is a manager of inclusive workplaces from the Workplace Policy and Strategy Division of MOM. Over to you, Wing-Yen.
Thanks very much, Karina, and a very good evening to everyone, and thanks for taking the time to be with us here today. So I'm Vivien from MOM, and to kickstart the session, I will be doing a short sharing on what work-life harmony entails and the practices that contribute to it. So to provide a quick working definition of work-life harmony, On the next slide, please. Yeah, so we are essentially referring to being able to effectively manage both work responsibilities and personal aspirations. So there are a few key points that I would like to highlight here. In the phrase work-life harmony, we have used the term harmony instead of balance, as rather than seeing work and life as disparate entities that need to be balanced, we feel it is more about integrating both aspects together in a way that brings about contentment when work positively impacts personal life and values and even one's state of mental well-being. So this also means that work-life harmony can actually look very differently for everyone, as what Moss Gunn shared earlier, and it is shaped by individual priorities at different stages of life, and it depends on the conditions at the workplace, at home, in the community, and even larger society. So on the next slide, we see that employers increasingly recognize that work-life strategy is a key in talent attraction and retention, engaging the workforce, and supporting organizational performance. Many employers have also indicated their plans to maintain flexible work arrangements beyond the pandemic. At the same time, employees themselves have also shared that they value initiatives that support work-life harmony and are also keen on shifting towards hybrid workplaces where they will still be able to work from home regularly after COVID-19. So importantly, progressive employers recognize that work-life strategies should be part of a clearly thought out strategy that will be able to engage the workforce and support organizational performance sustainably in the long run. So on the next slide, we see that there are actually various types of work-life initiatives which employers can enable employees to achieve work-life harmony. So firstly, they can do so via flexible work arrangements, which are actually work arrangements where employers and employees agree to a variation from the usual work arrangements. So this includes our usual things like flexi load, flexi place, as well as flexi time. So another way they can support employee is via enhanced leave benefits. So these are leave schemes that are above and beyond the standard leave that is mandated by law. So some common examples that are offered by employers include extended childcare leave or even compassionate leave. So the last bucket here is employee support schemes, which are other work-life initiatives that may involve the creative use of existing organizational resources. So these schemes can also help support individuals' mental well-being by enabling them to better manage the non-work aspects of their lives. So having shared about these three initiatives, the challenge from now on will be for employers to understand the needs of their unique workforce and provide a mix of work-life initiatives that are useful to them. So on the next slide, we actually share more about the tripartite standard on work-life harmony, which was launched last month. So this actually specifies practices at the workplace to support employees to effectively manage responsibilities and aspirations in the spheres of work and personal life. So broadly, there are 7 practices within this standard that employers will need to implement to adopt it. So as I shared earlier, flexible work arrangements, employee support schemes, and enhanced leave policies are the 3 key pillars of our work-life strategy. So these 3 make up our first 3 practices respectively. So in addition, we also require adopters to appoint a member of senior management to champion work-life harmony, to discuss with caregivers suitable working arrangements, and also regularly review the effectiveness of the work-life programs. So on the next slide, you can see why employers should adopt the tripartite standards from a business perspective. So for one, the standards allow for companies to be recognized as a progressive employer. Adopters are recognized as an employer of choice and for their progressive employment practices, and can also use the tripartite standards logo in their publicity and recruitment materials. So the standards can also serve as motivation for employees who know that they are being treated fairly and supported. So on the next slide, we highlight the application process for adopting the tripartite standard on work-life harmony. So for employees who are interested, application is actually via the online application form for our tripartite standards, which can be accessed via the QR code here. So if anyone is interested. So upon sign up, employers will actually receive a confirmation email with the tripartite logos within 2 weeks, and the companies will be included in our list of tripartite standard adopters on TAFEP's website. So to make it easier for employers, we have also streamlined the process as much as possible, and as such, there is no upfront documentation or audit processes needed. So if you have any queries on clarifications on the tripartite standard on work-life harmony, please also feel free to visit TAFEP's website, or you can drop an email to the email address here. So we look forward to all your applications. So yeah, that's all I have for you today, and I'll pass the time back to Karina. So thanks very much once again.
Thanks very much, Vivien, for sharing a little bit more about the tripartite standards on work-life harmony. As mentioned, it was launched just last month, so hot off the press. We will now move on to the presentation by Ms. Ong Pei Woon. She's the Senior Assistant Director of Business Development with the Workplace Safety and Health Council with MOM. She will share more on the topic of supporting mental well-being at workplaces. Over to you, Pei Woon.
Thank you, Karina. All right. Earlier on, Vivien actually touched on the value of work-life harmony and what companies can do to support that. For me, I would like to touch on mental well-being at workplaces, because the reason why work-life harmony is important for employees to thrive at work is because work-life harmony has great impact on one's mental well-being. Happy employees are productive employees, and they definitely stick around longer. Yeah. Next slide. So let me start by sharing this picture. It's a mother who is actually unfortunately mourning the death of her daughter. Takahashi killed herself on Christmas Day on 2015 after being so tired and stressed out by work. She was clocking more than 100 hours of overtime in the months leading to it. And she was only 24 years old. In Japan, more than 2,000 people killed themselves due to work-related stress in that year alone. Dozens of other victims died from heart attacks, strokes, and other conditions brought on by spending too much time at work. Singapore isn't that far behind either. We're actually number 2 in terms of the hours that we spend at work. But don't get me wrong, we are not really villainizing work here. Work is not the problem. In fact, IMH has said that work is actually a source of purpose, self-worth, and a sense of achievement. It actually does support positive mental well-being. People need work to thrive. But what we should really guard against is excessive stress from work. And that is what we're talking about today. Now, zooming out, let's just take a look at how our state of mental well-being is like in Singapore. The statistics here are based on a study by IMH in 2016. It shows that 1 in 7 persons had experienced mental disorder in their lifetime, and work was one of the factors. 3 out of 4 did not seek professional help, and it is estimated that stress-related illnesses actually cost us as much as 3.2 billion a year. During the COVID pandemic, many of us experienced heightened levels of anxiety, change, and conflict. And now employers are recognizing the need to pay more attention to employees' mental well-being. So today I just wanted to highlight that when we talk about mental well-being, our focus is not just about preventing mental disorders. In fact, mental well-being lies across a continuum, ranging from healthy to unwell. Likewise, our efforts are not just about helping the unwell or supporting those at risk in the middle, but it is also about enabling the healthy to thrive. So one of the important messages we want to get out there today is to remind people that not being healthy does not make us weak. And it is important that as leaders, we can also encourage others to not feel so by sharing our own stories and struggles to inspire and give hope. So these are some myths about mental disorders that it is useful for us to know, especially as employers or leaders. Firstly, mental illness is not incurable. It can take time, but it can be managed. Secondly, those with mental disorders are no more likely to be dangerous or violent than any one of us. We have probably been given that impression through watching too much movies and TV shows, but that's not true. Okay. Thirdly, as mentioned before, those with mental disorders should not be seen as weak. It's just like catching a cold. You can't tell who's next in line. And lastly, it's not something that they can just snap out of it. It takes time, it requires support, and sometimes even medication. So if we will just give a little bit more support to such people, I believe they can bounce back faster. So today I wanted to share what we can do at workplaces according to the 3 categories mentioned. Firstly, the unwell. In our hiring process, we should firstly stop asking or making applicants declare their mental health history, because it sends a signal on the organization's position, and that isn't progressive at all. For those at risk, we can start paying more attention to each other's mental well-being, a signal that we care. Strengthen the social support system at the workplace, like having care officers, help employees better understand mental disorders so that stigma can be reduced or removed, and teach them how to spot signs of distress. The WSH Council is in partnership with HPB to offer the Total Reach program to companies, which offers talks and workshops across the entire spectrum of safety and health, including mental well-being. Here are just a few of the talks available under the program. They are all conducted by qualified psychologists and counselors, and they are all free, with much thanks to HPB. So please feel free to take screenshots, grab screen, and so that you can save that QR code and find out more about it. Thirdly, we need to better manage work stress levels for everyone. But how do we do so? There is this online tool called the iWork Health. It is a web-based self-help survey where companies can roll out to their employees, similar to an organizational culture survey. Just that the questions are designed to help organizations find out how stressed their employees are and help them pinpoint what is the source of stress. For example, could it be they're experiencing stress at the home front? Could it be a workload issue, job control, organizational culture, or interpersonal relationships that's giving them stress? It even helps organizations detect if there's harassment or bullying at the workplace. Aside from the organization getting an aggregated report, which is entirely anonymized, as in they can't tell where the inputs are coming from, individuals also get their own personalized report with very practical tips to address specific areas of need. It is very simple and very secure. So all you need is 3 steps. You sign up, log in through a CorpPass, register for an account, and there you go. You can start customizing it to your organization's needs. So do, once again, take a grab screen of the QR code. As organizations actually work to address their employees' source of stress, we want to encourage them to also be holistic in finding solutions and support. One channel to turn to is, once again, the Total Reach program. Aside from mental well-being talks and workshops, this program is holistic and also covers other topics, such as teaching people how to better manage conflicts and even offers physical activities. And getting a good workout, it also helps release stress. So aside from bringing such activities to the workplace, it is also important to remind employees that they can set aside work to lighten up and have fun and show them that you care about their well-being. So all these are just a few of the tips recorded or taken from the Tripartite Advisory on Mental Well-being at Workplaces. This was launched late last year. So do scan the QR code to find out the rest of the tips. I've shared much on what we can do as organizations. But beyond that, let us also not forget that we can all do something as individuals too. In this quote, it says, sometimes reaching out and taking someone's hand is the beginning of a journey. At other times, it is allowing another to take yours. Today, whether you are the one that can reach out and take someone's hands or the one in need of taking someone's hand, I hope you will do something about it. Let us all make an effort to improve work-life harmony by taking time to take care. So I've just had a collation of the previous key resources. So I just like to hold the screen for a few small seconds so that all of you can actually capture that. Of course, the slides could also be circulated to participants who are interested. So that's all from me. Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to share.
Thanks.
All right, back to Karina.
So we'll pause that on that slide for a little bit so that you guys do have permission from Pei-Woon to take a screenshot of this. And I would like to echo her point, let's all do our part to show that we care, to recognize the signs of stress in ourselves, as well as our family members and our team members. And again, take advantage of all these wonderful resources that we've already curated and have it, for you to tap to. And again, I think as Minister Gan mentioned, we are working with the Tripartite Alliance for Action on Work-Life Harmony to curate all of these wonderful resources. So it's right at your fingertips, and we'll make that available in August. All right, so now, just, in case some of you may have been sitting for a long time from one Zoom meeting or Microsoft meeting to other, if you can just bear with us, we're going to run a live poll, just make sure all of you are still paying attention and awake. So we have 4 live poll questions. So keep us honest here. We'll be sharing them one by one. And so the first live poll, very easy, yes, no. Do your company currently offer any work-life harmony initiatives? So if I can get some support from the team to launch that first poll. Just going to give everyone a few seconds, 30 seconds, I guess, should be enough for two-part answers. For those who are done earlier, just maybe get up, stretch a little bit. That would be helpful. Okay, I wasn't really paying attention to how much 30 seconds is, so I trust whoever's running the poll can shut it for me in 30 seconds. Let's see. Wow, excellent. 83% of you say that your company currently offers some sort of work-life harmony initiative. Yay, that's great news. We look forward to you guys sharing some of that. Maybe you can drop a few of that in the chat as well. Off to our second poll, just to be mindful of time. Does your company currently offer any initiatives to support employees' mental well-being? Example, stress management workshops, counseling support, after-hours communication policies, and so on. Let your fingers do the voting. Yes or no? Hopefully this is equally promising, but we shall see. When the 30 seconds or so is up, if we can close the poll. Yay! 64, not as high as 83%, but definitely promising still. Over half of you do say that your company does offer and do care about and recognize that there are currently stress issues and so on. So that's great news, everyone. Okay, off to the third poll. Sorry, I have to go a bit fast because we're running a tad bit slow on time. This one will give you guys a little bit more time because there are 4 options and you kind of got to read it. So which of the following work-life harmony practices do you think are most important, so that we can also get some insights and feedback? Flexible work arrangements, employee support scheme, mental well-being initiatives, or enhanced leave schemes? I think multiple choice, you can select more than one. So, feel free to check all of them if you feel that they are equally important to you. So, all right. Flexible work arrangements, 94% is the top winner. And we did have a webinar on that. And the recording is actually available as well from the panel dialogue on flexible arrangements for food services. And second is enhanced leave scheme is coming up at 70%, and a very close fight with the last two at 58 and 52% on employee support schemes and mental well-being initiatives. Very important. So Pei-Woon did a good job with highlighting the importance of mental well-being. Last poll, please. All right. Sorry, did the last poll come up? Ah, yes, here it is. What scope is there to enhance work-life harmony in your company? Will you start implementing some basics, or you already have existing ones, can do more? Sufficient initiatives, increase adoption. Sometimes the programs are there, but people haven't fully adopted it. And sufficient work-life harmony initiatives, good adoption. And then not sure as of now. So waiting for the response. Okay, I'm not sure whether we gave enough time for this because I even had some time to read it, but based on the polling results, the highest percentage said that they're existing ones, but can do more. Yep. I bet that's why people are dialing in to get some great ideas from the panelists and so on. Yeah, 13% not sure how. So hopefully after the session, if you were to run a post poll, you'll be able to get some ideas from the wonderful panelists as well as the MOM colleagues before. All right, so that's the end of our poll. We're going to right now move it along now to the next segment, which is our panel dialogue, which I've been sort of talking about. As mentioned, we've got, really great speakers representing all the, quite a number of the subsectors within the financial services. So we've got Maybank for the banking folks out there. We've got Prudential for insurance, and also Nikko Asset Management. Got Eleanor, Seet that will share a little bit from the asset management perspective. And to help us moderate this wonderful group of panelists, I have Ms. Jennifer Teoh. She's the Director and Senior Principal Forensic Psychologist of Clinical and Forensic Psychology Service at the Ministry of Social and Family Development. This was amazing when I saw her bio. She has been working with MSF for the past 23 years. That is awesome and amazing. She holds a master's degree in forensic psychology from the University of New South Wales, is a registered forensic psychologist in Singapore and Australia. And her areas of specialization actually includes mental health assessment and intervention. And so, really we're in good hands here, for her to help us moderate this topic on mental and general well-being. And she's currently involved with several national mental health related initiatives, such as the National Care Hotline, the Youth Mental Wellbeing Network, and the COVID Mental Wellness Task Force. Really great initiatives. And in her free time, she serves as an adjunct associate professor with the psychology department at NUS, and she's been doing that for the past 10 years. And she is currently the vice president, she was the vice president of the Singapore Psychology Society. So over to you, Jennifer, so you can kick off the panel for us.
Thanks, Karina. Thank you. And I would like to say a warm welcome to everyone. Good evening. Thank you for staying with us. I would like to thank MOM for inviting me to be the moderator for the wonderful panelist discussion today. It is a topic very, very close to my heart. Last year I was a PSLE mommy, and I have a double whammy, right? It was the pandemic, and I was running the National Care Hotline, the planning team behind the scene, and the supervisor for the hotlines too, and working on several crisis-related kind of projects with different ministries. At the same time, trying to manage my youngest boy, PSLE. So the ongoing pandemic really had a potential kind of adverse impact on our well-being and on our mental health. None of us expect, even including myself as a psychologist. It has been very tough for everyone, and the new norm of the hybrid working arrangement that we are now experiencing it, right, across the different sectors, had given rise to a number of challenges in blurring our work and our personal life. Like I find myself having to, replying more email actually at night, although, a lot of them is due to the crisis work. But that kind of impact on us can be very significant. And it is important for us, for companies and all of us, to look at work-life harmony. And work-life harmony, like what has been shared, is not about finding a balance. It is about looking at personally what makes sense for you, what is your purpose, and what are you passionate about, and what are your priorities, and then to integrate work into your life, right? And hopefully to find both fulfillment at work as well as in our personal life. Right? Therefore, today we're very privileged to have three panelists here with us to share with us, their sharing on the implementations of work-life harmony. The first panelist we have is Mr. Wong Keng, Head of Human Capital at Maybank. Second panelist, Heng Fai, you want to say hi? Are you able to say hi?
Hi, everyone.
Hello. And second, our panelist is Ms. Vivien Wong, Head of Center of Excellence in HR from Prudential. Vivien, you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Third but not least is Ms. Eleanor Seet, President and Head of Nikko Asset Management Asia.
Evening,
Eleanor?
everyone. Thanks,
Okay.
Jen.
So we have very exciting questions coming up, and remember to post your questions in a Q&A box. And if it's meant for one of the panelists, please indicate so. So to kick off the panelist session, I would like to invite Mr. Wong Keng to start off with, to share with us more about himself and his company, Maybank, and some of the work-life strategies, as well as initiatives that Maybank have been implementing. And over to you, Mr. Wong.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Minister. Thank you for having me here. Maybe just to give a brief introduction about Maybank. Maybank is one of the Asia leading financial services group. We operate in 18 countries and in all the ASEAN countries, fourth largest in terms of assets. We have a total of 43,000 employees across all these countries that we operate in. In Singapore, we are one of the largest and most important market within the Maybank Group. We started operations here in 1960. Currently, we have probably close to 3,000 staff. So besides the banking arm, we also have Etika, our insurance arm, Maybank, Keng, which is our investment banking and stockbroking arm, as well as Maybank Asset Management. So in total, I oversees all the 4 entities covering more than 3,000 employees. Jennifer, just to share, I've been in Maybank for 24 years, slightly longer than you. Happy to share that. Happy to be around for 24 years. Okay, so maybe just to touch on Maybank in terms of what we are doing. I think we is a strong believer in work-life harmony, and what work-life harmony means to us is what you have shared, the ability to achieve both their personal as well as their professional goals. And we also recognize that for individual, it means different things at different stage of their life cycle, right? So for somebody that have probably just started work versus somebody that has a child going to PSLE like mine this year, it means different thing, right? So PSLE didn't seem that important to me until this year when my kid is doing this. So in terms of the approach that we take a very holistic approach towards work-life harmony. In a way, to describe it, I would say we look at it from a cradle to grave approach, all right? Looking at the needs and wants of the individual at different stage of their life. And I've mentioned earlier that this is something that's very close to our hearts because it's also very much in line with Maybank mission of humanizing financial services. So what that means is that when we talk about humanizing financial services, it applies not only to how we treat our customers, it also applies to how we treat our employees, right? And we are a strong believer that if we have happy employees, we have happy customers. And if we have a combination of both, then we can have happy results, right? Which obviously translate into better bottom line, better P&L and things like that for us. So maybe just to give a brief in terms of the whole range of the work-life practices that we have. I mean, I think earlier on MON has shared quite a fair bit, but I just want to maybe share one or two, which I felt was a bit more memorable for me. I think 1 or 2 years back, we introduced what I call this extended maternity leave scheme for staff beyond the mandatory 16 weeks or 4 months. So we actually offer staff beyond that 2 more months of maternity leave at half pay. And then after that, another 6 more months of unpaid maternity leave. And the reason for doing so is really because we recognize that even after 4 months, there were some female employees asking whether can they extend their maternity leave beyond that 4 months. But it's not on norm, right? So you have to ask. right? So it's not really a norm. So what we did was to institutionalize it so that it's all right for you to take that extended 2 months of maternity leave because we have institutionalized it. And that remains one of our most popular initiatives. I think we talked a lot about what has happened in the last 1 or 2 years because of COVID, and then we touched about mental health and things like that as well. So I think we also recognize that the stress comes from many areas. I mean, besides working from home, and sometimes your house environment may not be the best environment to work in. I think the other stress also comes from the fear of whether will I stay at my job, the fear of whether will I get pay cut, the fear of financial stability, because somebody in your household may have been affected by all these things as well. So some of the key things that we did at a very, very early stage is to give our employees assurance, 2 things. 1, we're not going to cut jobs. Number 2, we're not going to cut pay, right? And then after that, we came up with a lot of schemes that was surrounding what was happening because of COVID-19. And one of the key things that we did was we recognized that some of the employees, especially the lower paid ones, were more affected by COVID than others. So we decided to give them, those earning less than $4,000, $1,000 each. And for some of them whose household income has been affected because the spouse may have lost a job or pay cut, or their family in Malaysia, Philippines, or other places may have suffered a pay cut as well. So we decided to introduce what I call this employee support scheme and give them $2,000 if there's an impact in terms of the financial status of your household members as well. So besides that, I think because of COVID, a lot of things we actually move online. So things like webinar on health, on mental health. And interestingly, because of this, we have to think about the physical health as well. So we got Zoom exercise, right? We are privileged that I have really professional coaches in Malaysia that are really coaches, right? So they actually conduct for us 15-minute Zoom that we open up to our staff so that, well, they still get the kind of exercise, but they do it at home. Other things like 15 minutes happy Zoom. Don't talk about work, just talk about what you have been doing, how are you within the department or within the unit itself, which I thought is quite useful. I'll share more of that later, Jennifer, when we touch on other things. So just to stop here and then we'll continue later.
Thanks, Keng Fai. So exciting to hear a range of, you say, highly tailored kind of initiatives for your different employees. As well as, I like the idea of happy Zoom. I'm going to borrow that idea. Thanks so much for your sharing. Okay, I would like to invite Vivien. Vivien, would you like to say a quick words about your company as well as the work-life harmony initiatives that Prudential is implementing? Over to you, Vivien.
Thanks, Jennifer. Hi, everyone. Just maybe a short introduction. So I work with Prudential for the last 3.5 years, and Prudential has been around for more than 85 years in Singapore. And primarily, I'm sure most of you would know that we offer insurance services and protection to our customers. So for us in Prudential, when we look at employee well-being or work-life harmony, the first thing I think we recognize is that work-life harmony, like what a lot of the other presenters have shared, can look very different, right, for different employees. Whether you're a young professional to someone who is a working mom or dad, it is quite different. How we look at it in Prudential is that we look at providing employees with the kind of environment and culture that supports them, the infrastructure that allows them to work from anywhere, and lastly, programs and tools that are able to allow them to tap on what what's applicable to them so that they can achieve work-life harmony for themselves. And if it helps, when we sort of look at programs, we typically think around 4 areas. So what we provide physically, financially, mentally, as well as emotional programs. And this helps us to sort of craft our well-being programs across different segments of employees. One thing I think, giving some examples of what we do at Prudential. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the segment of the older workers. And I think this was something that we have done, in 2019. It was a quite interesting conversation with our CEO in terms of, how we did this research on Ready for 100. So what does it take for us to be ready to live to 100? And we realized that for a lot of our older workers, financial security is a huge concern, right? I mean, most of us will probably not, Wing and I, we say that we can live to 100, but we'll be thinking about, okay, can we actually financially sustain ourselves? So one of the things we did was we decided to remove the retirement age of our employees so that employees can truly work as long as they wish to work. And we do have employees who decide at 65, 67 that, okay, they want to retire, look after their grandchildren. But one of the things that it's really about providing financial support to our older workers is through the scheme where they do not have to worry about will they actually lose their job? Will they be asked to retire when they reach a certain age? The other initiatives around physical well-being, I think it's a small thing which we did was volunteer leave. So we are quite big on contributing to the community, working with NGOs. So we actually give our employees volunteer leave where they can actually take time off, days off to actually work with a volunteer organization of their own. So when we talk about well-being, it's not about just what they receive, but also how they are actually giving back, and how through that they actually feel good about themselves and their contributions. In the area of mental and emotional well-being, I mean, being an insurance company, one of the first things we did was obviously to ensure that we provide sufficient insurance coverage when it comes to psychiatric and psychologist kind of treatment or support. I mean, we have to sort of walk the talk in the area that and the business that we do. And besides that, through different to the use of data, really, we sort of narrowed down to what were the issues that our employees are facing, and things we introduced, and we sort of embed was example mental wellness app. So I use this quite often. So it teaches you different things from like mindfulness practice to how to fall asleep at night, how to relax, and it's a very simple tool. And how we embed it in our daily work is that when it comes to certain activities, we will start off with the use of the app, sort of to bring people. I do a 3-minute breathing exercise or a 1-minute breathing exercise to get everybody focused and centered on a meeting. So that's how we sort of embed things into day-to-day work as well. The last thing I want to share is, I think during COVID, we had to pivot quite quickly, and we had to really think about what really matters during this period. And for one of the things we realized is that while we have all these programs, our managers are the ones that are really the ones that have to make things happen, the ones that have to connect with employees on a day-to-day. And Keng has this what did you say, 15 minutes happy Zoom. So what we did was, our managers were so stressed with finding out what to do with their staff in that 15 minutes. We don't determine the number of minutes, but we came up with, whether it's games or, things that, things that managers can take and they can sort of use that to engage with their staff literally. So they don't have to think of their own ideas. They could just take off what we share with them, and then they do that for the week or for the 2 weeks with their staff, just to really help employees connect beyond the stressful work discussions that happen on a daily basis. So so I think I'd like to maybe stop here and yeah, hand the time back to Jennifer.
Thanks, Vivien. Thanks for sharing the very thoughtful initiatives that Prudential has taken. For example, the approach towards the elderly employees. I thought that was really thoughtful and being very flexible and also very understanding of their needs. I love the idea that you talk about walk the talk, like having insurance coverage also for psychiatric illnesses, mental health issues, to actually normalize it, that is part and parcel of our health. Of course, the ideas of the apps and all that. So Prudential is pretty advanced to kind of give the avenue for the employees actually to have a chance to use that at their fingertips. So thanks for your sharing. Last but not least, Eleanor, I would like to invite you to share. Eleanor from Nikko and Asset and Management Asia. Over to you, Eleanor.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thank you to the Tripartite IHRP. I'm humbled, very, very shy to be speaking. Certainly aside Keng 5, Vivien, Jennifer, yourself, I am not a HR professional. I run the business. I look after our Asia Japan business for Nikko Asset Management. I'm here to learn as much as I can so we can see what might be relevant for us. My HR partner should actually be speaking today. We are the smallest of the FIs, clearly in asset management. I think that's the reason why we're probably here today. So in terms of strategies, maybe what we can share is something that we have done, which is very organic, very specific to us. But maybe I'll try to see if I can share some of the underlying thinking and the approach, so that to the extent that it is relevant, we can pick that out. But where the other two organizations are clearly much larger, we're much smaller in comparison. So we're 150 people in Singapore, and in terms of what we do, it's much more specific. Whereas I think the two larger FIs are a little broader based, but we are a full service office. We run about a quarter of the firm's assets out of Singapore. We have I think our chapter here is only about 10 years old, set against an industry where you really had a reputation and a brand over decades, not number of years. And that's because 10 years ago, we acquired DBS Asset Management from DBS Bank. So we have a very curious profile here where, clearly the name comes across as being Japanese, but we're not just Japanese. We're local because of our DBS profile, but we're not just local, and we're growing global. So I think it's very interesting from the perspective that our industry is really a bunch of mostly dominated by globals and locals. So I like to say that we're a $200 billion startup, which sounds like an oxymoron, but the point is we have to compete differently. And so hopefully this will translate later as I talk about maybe some of the examples of what we've had to do, but we don't have the luxury of resources and size, and that has different challenges, but we are smaller and the challenges that come with. So clearly on our end, because of the profile that I described and the war on talent and the fact that we are a people business at the end of the day, we need our team and people to differentiate and compete and to win. And so the story and the proposition that we have is really, part of our strategic differentiator for the business, for us to retain our talent and really ultimately determine our outcome. So that the heart of how we think and approach from a talent perspective. Admittedly, we are still very, very early and in the midst of continuous refinement of our thinking around wellness. We try to take it a more holistic approach. We believe that any individual's well-being encompasses actually a lot of elements but I guess you can think of it as self first and then others. And under the aspect of self, we look at it from a spiritual perspective, mind, emotions, body. And then in the wider circle of others, clearly we can develop much nicer names for this, but the thinking is on the other circle. It includes important aspects to all of us, such as family, community, colleagues, financial, and environment. So most of all our activities are organized in, in one of these, 9 buckets. And importantly, a lot of our practices and activities, because we don't have like broad-based like programs because of size and, resources, a lot of it is organic and is driven bottoms up. So what we have is we have the activities jointly owned and run by some combination of, depending on what the activity is. Sometimes it's HR, sometimes it's our sustainability group, and sometimes it's by Red Club. We have a Red Club that's called like Nikko Go. And so we have these different drivers just so that, sometimes HR has a bit of a different personality. When activities are launched by HR, sometimes people are a little bit hesitant depending on what the topic is, but we have it run sometimes by our Red Club. And so sometimes that's led to actually higher engagement and adoption. So, for example, how we do is we divide any new talent that comes in, you draw from the bucket, we organize it almost like school into houses. And the houses are obviously all the different values, a little cheesy, I'll admit. But, so what we do is, it originally started as something just to have collaboration and engagement, because when we first together after M&A, there was just, everybody's just working so hard, which is not, different to last year. And there was this frenzy, but yet we found that we don't really know each other, right? And, and a lot of what we do, it's a lot easier if you know each other. So it started from that base many years ago, of just having this ability to meet people cross-function, cross-seniority, and be able to hone together. So we split, you random draw a team, you join a house, and then all the activities we compete. So the house captains will compete. So you get marks for participation, you get marks for obviously winning, and so we do that system just to make sure that we make it fun, importantly, and we drive engagement. Maybe I can leave it there as a start, and then few questions as we go, and hope to give you more examples.
Thanks, Eleanor. Thanks for sharing the very creative idea. Despite, you talk about relatively, it's a small company with limited resources. Your teams really have creative ideas of separating people into different houses, and for them to have healthy competitions and organize those ground up initiatives. I thought that's really very creative way, and also kind of get staff engaged in brainstorming the kind of activities, both mental wellness as well as health related kind of activities that they would like to do. So thanks so much for your sharing. Okay, now, so based on the MOM employment survey, it was found that the finance sector has a higher than average flexi work arrangement provision rate, which is 61%, which is higher than the baseline of the rest of the workforce, which is about 53%. So I'd like to ask the 3 panelists, what do you think are the success ingredients? Like what factors that can actually enable the finance sector to have more pickup rate when it comes to flexi working arrangement compared to other sectors? Anyone want to share? Vivien?
Maybe I try.
Let's try.
Jennifer? Yeah. So I think all of us recognize that the stress levels of jobs in the finance sector is probably very high, right? And I think because of that, many organizations do recognize the importance of work-life harmony and also the mental well-being of our employees as well. So I think that in a way explain why the take-up rate or the implementation rate of companies in the finance sector are probably a bit higher than other industry. And I think secondly, also we do recognize that it's a very important lever, right, for us in order to attract, retain, as well as to engage our employees, especially in such a high stress working environment.
Thanks, Keng. How about Vivien and Eleanor? In what view, what are the impetus you think for the finance sector?
Okay, I think for me, I mean, looking at the insurance sector, I think one of the things that obviously, I mean, the nature of our work does allow for flexible work arrangements to be administered quite easily. I think, you know, a lot of us do work in the office, and it's more around infrastructure, right, that sort of allows us to sort of do that, or rather offer that to our employees. I think the other thing is, I mean, for us, we hire quite a lot from other sectors as well. I mean, with our digital transformation, right? I mean, there's like a lot of hiring that we're doing from the IT sectors, and I think they are also very well known for flexible work arrangements. And I think it becomes almost like, oh, how come you don't have it? Like, you know, where I'm coming from, I used to have it. Almost becomes a necessity for it to be available. I think the last thing, I think the tone from the top is quite important. I mean, so for us, I think our management do see the value of flexible work arrangements, and I think that really help sort of get things going, right? Where the management sort of the tone, as well as, I mean, leading by example, they are accepting towards it, and it allows employees to adopt it in a more stressless manner. You know, if it's not supported, then obviously, even if it's a policy, then a lot of employees will have reservations about even utilizing it. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Vivien.
I think from our end, I'd say there is that deep recognition that you know, our people are, you know, so key, and the need to walk with them over, you know, life cycle changes and challenges over time, from a very practical level. That's not to say other sectors don't look at it that way, but I think, you know, we're keenly very dependent on that, especially in the kind of long gestation business that we are all in, right? So where our talent pool kind of looks at it in kind of 2 to 3 years, you know, is long term, and I go on to the next thing. A big part of what we do just doesn't bear fruit that way. So, you know, a lot of our brands, you know, are all, you know, on doing, you know, things repeatedly, sustainably over long periods of time. And so you need the people in order to do so. I think when we first started, you know, flexible working arrangements, it was probably about a dozen or so. I mean, we have 150 people, so, you know, it was like a dozen or so, you know, when we first began. It was like, and these are the ones with like formal arrangements. And then you probably have roughly like another half a dozen formal arrangements, right? But a lot of it, so we've seen a lot of, whilst we don't have like big programs, a lot of it, because of our size, there's also the ability to customize and respond. So there's like part-time, staggered hours, compressed work week, you know, all kinds of different scenarios, because to the point that, you know, has come out actually several times already, you know, we had staff who come out and say, look, you know, I don't want to quit, but, you know, I'm thinking I need to take the year off of PSLE. I have caregiving concerns, right? I have somebody sick in my family, and I don't know how long it's going to be, right? It could be 6 months. It could be, I don't know, ever. I don't know, right? And so I think, you know, it started from very, you know, sort of small, humble manner, and being able to respond to a particular need. And then thereafter, by COVID, I think we all surprised ourselves how, you know, we managed to do that. So I think today we have the opposite effect. You have people like banging down doors to come back to the office, as opposed to, you know, asking for flexible work arrangements. So, you know, I think, you know, it definitely has surprised us how, you know, it hasn't affected output at all. And so, you know, but I think it starts from the very baseline, you know, of wanting to kind of hang on to the talent that we have, high performing staff that really are very committed to us, but, you know, undeniably have to go through life cycle, you know, sort of changes. So ultimately retention.
Yeah, thanks, Eleanor. Thank you to our three panelists. I think what you three of you have shared are the, you know, best practices with regard to really at the core of it is to value our staff, that to convey that we care a lot for you, We want to invest in your well-being, and we are here to journey with you in different life stages, right? Because they will have different needs that you need to, like Eleanor said, you start with just very concrete response to their needs in different life cycles. And I'm also quite heartened to hear that it's also the awareness that finance sector is one of the quite stressful kind of sectors, right? The awareness that staff, if we don't look after well, they may burn out and eventually they leave. And the talented people that you have, you can't retain them, and therefore it definitely will affect the organization and the morale of the rest of the staff too. So thanks for sharing the best practices that three of you talk about with regard to how finance sector can have higher take-up rate. And given the rest of the time they have, I thought really to run through the questions. Good questions are coming from the audience, and the questions are four of the questions are relating to the challenges and the barriers in implementing work-life harmony. Let me read out the first question. So this, the audience, the participants share with us that because of blurring of work-life boundaries, especially because of COVID, we find ourselves employees also working severely longer hours than when we are physically working in an office. So the question is, how can we convince people managers or even the top management that we need to care more about our employees' welfare while trying to balance work productivity and expectations when it comes to work output? It's also quite similar to the next question about the various initiatives. Two questions actually say that companies may have various initiatives that have shared, but the adoption rate, the take-up rate is typically low. And it could due to employees already say, I got so many things I have to do, and they may not see this as so-called work. They may see as this is something that less prioritized than their core work itself. Therefore, they may not participate in the various initiatives. So I would like to invite the panelists to share your view on this, possible barriers and challenges that different companies may face.
Maybe I just share. So very true during this period, especially at the initial period when we first started working from home. Really, there's no day, no night, no weekdays, no Saturday, Sunday. You don't know whether today is a public holiday or not anymore. No. So really,
no longer go for holiday, right?
Yeah. So that is a real life situation, right? So I think along the way, I think we learn, we adapt. And then in our case, for example, we came up with what I call certain rules of engagement. So the rules of engagement is actually quite simple, right? Do not disturb your staff after 10 p.m. Some say, hey, why so late? I would say, do not disturb your staff after 10 p.m. unless the house is burning down, unless it's really so urgent, do not disturb them. Not on weekends, not when they're on leave, okay? Don't disturb them. So we say the tone must be from the top. So as management, we say, don't have meetings, right? And after office hours, don't eat into lunch hour. So another thing that we implemented is no Zoom Fridays. Okay, so what it means is don't have Zoom meeting on Fridays, have a break. Otherwise, every day we are just moving from one Zooming here, Zooming there. So these are the things that we have done. And to get higher participation rate, I think generally what we try to do is try not to eat into our employees' own time. So things like exercise, things like some of this talk, if we can, we sacrifice a bit of the management time of the employees' work time, right? And do that. So meaning that instead of working, the employee can spend the 15 minutes participating in some of the exercise or half an hour attending some of this webinar and some of these talks and things like that. So, in a way, they still have to break when they need a break and when they should have the break.
Thanks, Keng. Vivien or Eleanor?
Yeah, so maybe just adding on to Keng Sai, we also have no Zoom Fridays or like no meeting Fridays, like essentially. But then what we do is we try to put some of our programs on those Fridays. So it becomes more like a, it's the day you take care of yourself, right? Whether it's from a learning perspective or from a wellness perspective, we put those programs on Friday because we know that, okay, that's the day where employees have a little bit more control, right, over the time that they spend at work. So that's how we sort of extend it. I think yeah, so I mean, that's what I want to share. The other thing we've done is for some of programs, we have embedded what we call wellness influencers. So we have also sort of looked through the organization and individuals who, employees, right, who personally really believe in well-being. And they walk it in their lives, and they are also passionate to actually share with others. And so we use them to sort of get participation, so encourage employees to attend. We have gamified some of our wellness initiatives so that it becomes almost like a competition amongst departments, and that sort of get people into the habit of like practicing, different wellness initiatives, whether it's a talk or a meditation or things like that. So that's what we have done.
I think from our end, in terms of challenges, I mean, like I said, we always talk about, you're so busy, we're so few of us, none of us can, everybody complains, I cannot take on this red club, I don't have so-and-so, and then a lot of this is success, you need somebody who has passion, right? So I think one of the things that we found is in terms of finding, not just confined to obviously mental wellness, but all our, work-life harmony related programs. It's actually, we are very realistic to ourselves about what we can handle, right? And try to find that program that fits us just because we're not big enough for something broad-based. So how we started when we, like I described, we were just working so hard together, but there was just no opportunity to get to know each other. So we said, look, let's find a program. So we can't do anything broad-based that would need a lot of people, right? So we found a special needs school that was in need of actually just people to come and spend time. So there was a bigger bank that had already thrown, given them a huge bucket of money to run an art program. But they just, because it's a special needs, they wanted, it's a hearing impaired school. They just needed people to spend time just to speak to them, run the program. So we don't have time to run the program, and do all of this. And we, and we also didn't have money to spend, right? So so we jumped on and we say, we'll give you that resource. And, I can't commit to obviously too long, but they said, we just need 10 people every Friday for this period of time. So we look for programs where, can it be roving 10 people? I cannot have the same 10 set people commit to, because I don't know, I can't, we can't provide that certainty. But if it's a 10 roving set of people, I think we can, right? So we're very realistic about what the requirements are, and then we go out and hunt for programs to try to fit that need. And a lot of people found that actually that was very uplifting, because they saw, junior staff got to engage with portfolio managers that they don't get to touch normally, right? And some, cantankerous portfolio managers become very different people when they, when you bring out a part of them, when they're engaging with children, and sort of father, mother side of them come out, and not different from work setting, and you build bonds, and and a lot of them were very touched by the activity and found that to be actually really meaningful. And so then what started about, every department give me one person, drag your feet type, then it became everybody was really committed. There were people who repeatedly wanted to go back because they started to build friendships with the students, So I think that that's one of the sort of challenges that, we didn't have resources, time, how can we add more time? We're already spending so much time together, frankly, I don't want to do more things with you, right? I mean, so I think, it's finding something very meaningful. I think one thing is we had to be very creative. Again, for example, like I said, we don't have a lot of money to spend. So things like, so leave. When we first started out, we did, we couldn't throw benefits at people because literally we were fighting to get to break even. So what we did was we said, what matters to everybody is leave. Never mind the fact you can't take it, but that's a different topic. But when we first started, the industry was more, sort of, it's quite typical to start with, sort of 18, 20 days, and then you add from there, right? So we threw that all out the window and we said, look, everybody starts at 24. Right. because leave was important and all of that. And then we started to build on it. So we had volunteer leave. And then about, I want to say, I think it was 2018, we rolled out stress leave. Right. So you could, and so you don't have to add to leave entitlement. We worked with our own leave entitlement. It's just that now you can use, you can cite stress leave. So you don't have to show an MC. It's just something between you and your manager. Your manager decides that you just, you know, I don't know, tired, need a break, please carry on. You just use your leave for that, right? And you don't have to provide any sort of documentation. It's just a chat that's, you know, we're small enough, nimble enough, trust and faith, you know, and so beyond that, so it's small things like that that we could do just to kind of respond to the need. And last thing is, in terms of shortage of ideas, because that's always one thing. We don't know what to do. We want to do things, but what do we do? One thing we found really effective is listening to our young people. You know, because all the old folks, we all didn't have any ideas, right? And so we found that the young people were bursting with ideas, and we talked to different groups that had, you know, that needed things. So we said we had things for mothers, but we're not doing anything for fathers. So we spoke to the fathers, and the fathers said, you know, can I use maternity, you know, benefits to claim for vaccinations, child vaccinations. So we did that, right? We spoke to youngsters and said, you know, sort of people with no families, and said, what do you need? So they said, well, you do flu shots for, you know, children, but what if I have no children? Can you do it for parents? But obviously the coverage for parents is two different things, right? So we talked to our service providers, we tough talk them to include parents, right? You know, so we do, you know, flu shots for parents too. So we talked to our young people about what we want to do, and they gave us a truckload of ideas to try, and so we did. And obviously we had them drive it, and it's really led to some really creative things that we've done. So we talked to parents. Parents say, you know, what I struggle with is my teenagers. I want to have a work experience, but they're not old enough to do those internships. So everybody has kids at work, you know, the kind of thing. So we did Teens at Work, which is a program targeted at teenagers where, you know, just want to give them a sense of, you know, what the work environment. So we've done it since 2016, where we take teenagers of our staff, right? And you can choose to work with the parents. Sometimes parents don't want to have their child work with them, but, you know, and we find them and we give them a meaningful exercise where they come in, we spend time with them, how to write a resume, how to understand office code of conduct, you know, they get to attend live meetings. So we'll explain to, you know, clients or whatever that, you know, if you don't mind, we'll have, you know, these people sit and you see a live meeting, they see live interviews, and just get a sense of what it's like.
Thanks so much, Eleanor and Vivien and Keng. Thanks for sharing like how each of your company try to overcome the barriers. I think the point about the leadership, the management team, setting the example to get the buy-in from the supervisors. I think there's question on, you know, sometimes there's supervisors who actually ask the employees to come back to work, even though they can work from home, because they may not believe the supervisor may not believe in working from home. I think that the setting the role model to the different staff to say that it's okay to, you know, when you're stressed, for example, I don't know, I talk about stress leave, to normalize that for everybody from the top to ground up to, and there are questions also then the take-up rates, like how do we make it interesting? So I think setting it on Friday, a day that don't eat into our staff, our employees' time is important, like three of you alluded to. That protected time that is within working hours, make it fun. I think Vivien talked about gamified it. Perhaps it has to be short, because it's a long drawn. Staff also might think that employees will think that it's, you know, I'll be worried about my core work. So it can be short and fun, and, you know, curate from them what would be the activities that they like to do. Let them make the decisions. Let them organize rather than, you know, something that they may not be interested in. I would like to, I know in the interest of time, I thought to really cover the last question. I think two questions asked about the organizations when it comes to implementing work-life harmony initiatives. can it be driven by HR in terms of as part of the policy, so that it can help to overcome the different challenges and barriers that we talk about? Can I invite our panelists to share, like, is it part of your HR policy, or it is more kind of organic when it comes to the work-life harmony strategies? And there's one more question, like, how do you know whether your strategies are effective? I thought that's a really good question.
Okay, so maybe I try. So for Maybank, it's mainly driven from HR, but of course we need the buy-in of definitely the whole management team. The CEO must support, and you have the whole management team supporting that. I think it's much easier to convince the people down the line. And of course, for different type of programs, we have different champions. So we also have a Red Club. We have a Red Club president that will drive some of these activities. That will drive some of the CSR activities as well. So I think having more people on the ground, more champions that believe in things like that is very important, because they are the ones that are actually practicing it. If you would ask me how do I measure the success of some of these programs, so obviously some programs are more popular than others. So in terms of take-up rate, things like the maternity leave, I will say that almost every one of them will go for the extended maternity leave. We have marriage leave of 2 weeks. So I can tell you almost everyone that get married in Maybank will apply for the 2 weeks of marriage leave. So the take-up rate for those kind of benefits are very strong. Before COVID, if you ask me what was the worst, I say telecommuting. Very, very few of them were actually telecommuting, okay, before COVID. Somehow or another, there's this perception that, I don't know whether will you be really working at home lah. And then those employees are working at home also worried, will I be out of sight, out of mind? Will I be forgotten as well? So I think the best thing that COVID has done is really promote telecommuting and making everybody a bit more comfortable that things can still carry on, people can still be productive with telecommuting. So in one of the survey that we did recently, actually more than 20% of our employees say that after all this, they want to continue to telecommute, right? Wow. So yeah, as compared to before that, practically very, very few, right? Thanks.
Like you just really rightly highlight, the telecommuting was really normalized in a perverse way by COVID. And people can be as productive as what we have shown in the past, like at least 18 months. Thanks, King Fai. Vivien, Eleanor?
I'm happy to add. So we have ours, as I shared earlier, co-owned. So it's dependent on activity and program. Clearly, some programs are better owned by certain divisions, but we have almost most things like kind of co-owned, and they gather to talk about different elements. So HR, sustainability, Nikko goals. So because but I think we have high participation because we cater to very specific groups, right? So if you cater it from 150% total staff perspective, then I think it probably doesn't capture for that, because that's the whole spirit of it is to have different things. So we have things like craft beer, which appeals to a very specific theme, to futsal, to cleaning up rubbish and stuff like that. But we have different timings for people who like after work hours, weekends, lunchtime, just to try to capture for different people with families and stuff. But I think in terms of how we get a sense whether they are working or not. So for us, everybody plays. So you're part of a house, you don't get to choose, right? So we have leads drive it with obviously members of their house team. They vote each other. For certain managers who are not as keen, we pair that manager up to somebody who's more keen, right? So some heads are more rah-rah, so we pair more rah-rah heads with less rah-rah heads. But in terms of how we can tell, engagement surveys that we've done, staff engagement surveys, we haven't done a lot. Our history is a lot shorter, admittedly, but we scored the highest, across our internal system. I dare not say turnover, because that will just jinx things. But tenure is decent. I think things like that we kind of measure. We do have employee assistance programs. For example, I think we started that in 2018, where we partner with a service provider, and the purpose is to extend employees who might need assistance, and build organizational well-being, emotional resilience, mental health. So there is a resource for them to call if they wish and they need help. Clearly we pay for that, but it's entirely confidential. So we just get a bill. We don't know anything. We extend that to staff, we extend that to their spouse, we extend that to family members and their children, if they so choose. But so they're reassured that we don't get any information, we just get the bill. I don't know, I think maybe it's too early to tell, but we're told that clearly such resources have been off the charts in terms of usage. Our numbers have stayed relatively flat. I'm not sure that draws any conclusion, but we've been monitoring usage just so that we can be sensitive to what more might be needed.
Yeah. Thanks, Eleanor. Vivien?
Okay, so I think very similar to the others, so I won't repeat, but I think for us it's driven by HR. One thing we are very clear in articulating is that the culture of the organization when it comes to empowerment and accountability, I think those two are fundamental values that help, support our, flexible work arrangements. So it's not about, like King-Fai was saying, outside our mind, or, I must report to work. So I think the culture bit is something that we sort of work very hard on, so that beyond top management adoption, top management buy-in and all that, it's also about managers seeing that it really works. So and I think in terms of the other question, what was the other question? About adoption rate. Yeah, so we measure everything that we do. So we measure take-up rate, but we also sort of look at how that ties in with our engagement surveys. So we do pulse surveys, and there's a specific index on wellness. So we sort of look at, like quarter to quarter what we have done and how that wellness index is moving, and whether we're sort of in the right direction. So that also helps to make sure that whatever we invest in, there is an ROI to talk about, and we can articulate that clearly to management as well.
Yeah. Thanks so much to our three panelists. And I definitely think that, evaluating the effectiveness of the various initiatives are important. In the shorter term, we look at the utilization of the various programs. And the longer term, you can look at the staff welfare outcome, right? In terms of the retention rate of the staff, the number of MCs, the sick leave, as well as, of course, many of you talk about the survey that is important. Both, short survey every now and then, periodically, as well as a longer kind of survey when, maybe every 2 years you can look at the various domains of area of satisfactions or feedback that our employees can give. So I'm mindful of time. Thank you so much to the audience for participating. Great questions. I wish that we have more time, and panelists, your wisdom and the practices that three of you shared are really progressive. I like the fact that you're not afraid to actually normalize such work-life harmony, because a lot of times well-being issues is seen as not hardcore as much as our physical health. It is a little bit invincible. I think after today's discussion, it come across really you're able to value it as a very important aspects of all of our life. Was it Keng-Fai, you said happy staff, happy employers, then it will be happy customers, right? And we need to be very compassionate with regard to the nuancing of the various needs of our staff. I think that's the tricky part, which means we must have a very intimate understanding of the needs, rather than assume these are the needs and very blunt. But I think that the way to go is to nuance it and to meet the needs of different employees so that nobody will feel left out. If you support the mommy, the daddy won't feel left out, or the singles won't feel left out, or the elderly. So I think that's the tricky part, but I think we definitely can be very thoughtful about it. So it has been very fruitful discussions, inspired discussions. I hope the audience also had some takeover points and good feedback also from audience input. So I want to thank everybody.